from Contact Report 911.
Limiting population growth is essential. Joachim Ng, 14 May 2025, 16:02 hours.
Nature uses a system of checks and balances to prevent overpopulation and ensure the stability of the ecosystem. Predators in the food chain help to keep prey populations under control. BERNAMAPIC, every extra child increases the impact of climate change. This inconvenient fact does not go down well with the general public, who hardly realize that overpopulation is the main cause of the global ecological crisis, which manifests itself in climate change, species extinction, and toxic pollution. More human beings mean higher consumption of fossil fuels, more deforestation to expand agricultural land, and greater urbanization. All of these factors are contributing to the growing ecological crisis that is gripping the world. The ecological footprint of humanity is determined by the size of the population and the amount of natural resources consumed per capita. As all poor countries strive for a higher standard of living, the consumption of natural resources is increasing rapidly, and the population is growing beyond the Earth's carrying capacity. What is carrying capacity? It is a universal law of nature that requires every population of animals and human beings to maintain the number of offspring within the limits of the resources available to the population in its ecosystem. The entire planet itself has a limited carrying capacity. Exceeding this capacity can lead to catastrophe. Nature utilizes a system of mutual control to prevent overpopulation and ensure the stability of the ecosystem. For example, predators in the food chain help to keep prey populations in check. Our tigers keep the populations of sambar deer, muntjac, wild boar, long-tailed macaques, and long-eared monkeys in check. Predators ate prey babies, and therefore prey animals build up their escape gear. This in turn forces predators to improve their prey-catching weapons rather than devote resources to producing lots of babies. Where are the population growth restrictions introduced? The only control ever introduced was China's one-child policy from 1980 to 2016. This restriction kept China's population at 1.4 billion instead of reaching 1.8 billion. What would have been the ecological consequences of population growth of another 400 million human beings? The Copernicus Climate Change Service reported that global temperatures reached an all-time high in March 2025. Since July 2023, virtually every month has been at least 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than before the start of the Industrial Revolution. March 2025 was 1.6 degrees C above pre-industrial levels. Australia recorded 1.61 degrees Celsius above average in the rolling 12-month period between April 2024 and March 2025. In March, the high temperatures contributed to the largest forest fire in South Korea since weather records began, in which 48,000 hectares burned and 30 human beings died. Every fraction of a degree of global warming increases the intensity and frequency of extreme weather events, such as heat waves, heavy rainfall, and droughts. We have a firm grip on climate change caused by human beings, said Friederike Otto of the Grantham Institute for Climate Change and the Environment. The extent of the dwindling Antarctic sea ice corresponds to 5 times the area of Malaysia, including the Borneo states. If the Denman-Shackleton ice shelf and Denman Glacier were to melt completely, it would raise global sea levels by 1.5 meters, New Scientist Weekly reported in its December 2024 issue. Forests and wetlands have lost their natural ability to absorb rainwater due to siltation caused by land conversion and mismanagement. After half a day of heavy rainfall, on 23 April, water levels rose up to 1 meter in parts of Sungai Buloh, Petalinjaya, and Subangjaya. Many houses were flooded, and several dikes collapsed. Dr. Johanna Ermi Jamaluddin commented on this in The Sun on 28 April. Once reliable, the monsoon now brings destruction. Between November 2024 and January 2025, more than 122,000 human beings were displaced by floods in Kelantan, Terengganu, and Sarawak. At the end of March, floods devastated 5 districts in Sarawak for the 3rd time this year and completely swallowed up houses on the riverbanks. Mitra-deep floods destroyed crops in Cebu, and farmers lost everything. Following the floods, WWF Malaysia warns that climate change and unchecked development are bringing the state to a critical point. 3 factors have led to overpopulation in Malaysia: religious absolutism, economic constriction, and communal domination. Religious absolutism. All religious authorities are in favor of an unlimited birth rate. This is due to a misinterpretation of Scripture and the need to increase the membership of a religion in order to gain political control over society. As an example, let me cite just one biblical passage, the book of Genesis in the Torah. God created human beings and commanded the first human pair, "Be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth and subdue it." Single family were drowned in the flood. All religions have similar Bible verses, and some have another verse that says that every human birth is difficult and therefore no birth should be prevented. The context is lost. How large was the world's population when these recommendations were made? You have probably already been told to boil water. But do you keep it boiling because no one told you to stop at 100 degrees Celsius? What happens if you keep boiling the water? The kettle dries out and catches fire. That is exactly what is happening to the global climate. It is on fire! Verses that refer to the difficulties of human births must also be read in the context of high neonatal and infant mortality rates. In biblical times, around half of all newborns died shortly after birth, or only a few years later. Today, the neonatal and infant mortality rate in most countries is only 1 to 2%. China has long been criticized by pro-birth advocates for allowing mass abortions in recent decades to curb population growth. However, we must be wary of making moral judgments based on theological arguments that an embryo is still a human being in the womb. Doctors know that an embryo develops gradually from a single cell, zygote, to a newborn, and that there is no single point at which personhood is considered to be achieved. If there were, countries would issue conception or embryo certificates instead of birth certificates for newborns. In fact, every midwife knows that many conceived embryos result in spontaneous abortion, which is a kind of natural quality control. However, China may have overstepped boundaries by allowing late-term abortions. A line must be drawn beyond which abortion is prohibited. What about the argument that using contraception is tantamount to preventing a soul from experiencing human life? This pro-life argument views contraception as murder and is the reason why some countries ban abortions even for rape victims. The victim is forced to be pregnant for 9 months and give birth to a child that painfully reminds them of the rape every time they look at it. The logical conclusion of such an argument is that no woman should reject the sexual advances of a man, whether friend, foreigner, or enemy soldier, so as not to deny a soul the chance to give birth. What about the child who grows up without parental love and care? It will be psychologically disturbed and probably prone to criminal behavior. Economic awareness. The narrow focus on economics has led to a strong imbalance between economy and ecology. That is to say, economic development without ecological concerns. 3 months ago, the Ministry of Women, Family, and Community Development called on young relations to marry and have children. Men should cooperate with their partners to have children. Childless couples were counseled to undergo fertility treatment to increase the birth rate. To ensure that the consumer base continues to grow and can absorb the production of goods, more births are needed, and for the industry to continue to flourish. Last December, an MP suggested that polygamy should be widely practiced, and families with more than 2 children should be offered greater financial incentives to counteract the declining birth rate in Malaysia. Malaysian travel packages, communal priority. In 1916, the Department of Statistics published a forecast according to which the Chinese population will fall from 21% in 2020 to 19.6% in 2030, while the Indian population will drop from 6.5% to 6.2%. The Malay population, on the other hand, will increase from 51.5% to 53.1%. These figures either make you happy or depressed. Politics is a matter of numbers, said a Chinese association chairman in 2016 when lamenting the decline in the Chinese birth rate. Fewer human beings in your own community means less bargaining power. In the same year, a DAP chairman said, "Democracy is about numbers. Politics also. Malaysians and Indians will not in agreement." Democracy in politics is all about exercising might to strengthen the position of the community you mainly represent. Malaysia's climate survival score was recently -6 points. Traffic pollution, 19 March issue. As it continues to prioritize more births than climate protection, it drops to -7 points. In the next article, we will detail the close link between each global population milestone and each increase in CO2 levels.